Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Roxy, COO of Serenity and Leadership. And today I'm going to be speaking to our very own Thom Dennis, our company's CEO and founder. So we are going to be talking about bullying in recognition of Anti-Bullying Week, which is coming up next month in November. And just to give you a bit of background on Serenity and Leadership, we are a culture change organization, ultimately, and we help businesses overcome challenges while always keeping people at the forefront. So Thom, it's a little bit different me interviewing you today. The shoe's normally on the other foot, and you are the one interviewing our upcoming guests who are going to be speaking in our monthly dialogues. But you are our speaker this month. I know that bullying is a topic that is very close to your heart. So you are going to be in the driver's seat giving the keynote talk. So bullying is something that many people across our society is still experiencing, and especially in the workplace. So I know that you've had personal experience of bullying. Is that something that you could elaborate on for us?
Hi, Roxy. Yeah, bullying takes many forms. And I think it's important to see bullying in a continuum, with harassment being part of that. And my own sort of personal experiences really go back to boarding school. I went to a prep school when I was 8 and a public school when I was 13. And at the prep school, I think that was sort of, I mean, that was a manifestation of bullying, which was just abuse, really. The headmaster, I think by today's standards, one would say he was a sadist. And I think he was probably a sexual pervert as well. But my personal experience of that was sort of fairly limited, I think. It's funny, certainly I have, I think, cut out a lot of my memories. So, and funny enough, I have a good friend who was at school at the same time as me, and he's told me stories about how I was, which I've kind of just blanked out in my memory. But essentially, the headmaster ruled an organization through fear, and it was kind of paradoxical because there were beautiful buildings and beautiful grounds, and the sport was amazing. But if you did badly at studies, academically, then you were beaten, and if you did badly in behavior, or your behavior was bad, then you were beaten. And that happened every Thursday. And I think that because my parents had made huge sacrifices to send me there and to spend the money to benefit me in my education, I don't actually think that I ever told them about it, not until years later anyway. So I don't know why, but I think I held the record for being beaten the most one term. And well, I mean, one can go into the psychology of it, but the effect was, I remember history class, the headmaster used to teach history, and sometimes he was late, really late for a lesson, and we'd sit there in frozen fear silence, waiting for him to come in. And a 45-minute lesson, he might be 40 minutes late. And so we just sat there. And I think there's no wonder at all why I ended up not learning any history at all. Yeah. And then at the senior school, at the public school, it was very different, because there it was the boys. And I learned the power of aloneness or should I say loneliness? I don't know, but I was very alone in my experience because it was decided by not the senior boys, but the middle senior boys, that I was a Jew, and that they decided to. I mean, I don't know what they decided, but the effect was that I was very, very hated. I think is better than disliked, and they took it out on me in all sorts of ways. So I guess that's where I really got my love of nature and trees, because they were my refuge, really. And sport, again, I could really express myself on the sports field, and I was reasonable at a number of the sports, which was great. So yeah, it was a taste of it.
Gosh, yeah, thanks for sharing that. And into your adult life now, you know, how's that affected you? How do you recover from that?
Well, I think it's amazing what's happening in the world of the study around trauma. I think it's fascinating that the medical profession, I think in this country, but certainly in Canada, in the training for doctors, they don't talk about trauma. And yet so much later life problems, addictions, and illness actually is rooted in early life trauma. So I've done a ton of therapy. I mean, I did go back to the school to try and put some of these ghosts to rest, but it wasn't a particularly successful adventure, because essentially they were, you know, everybody's moved on. That headmaster's long dead, and all the other masters who were there were also they died years ago. So the current administration of the school are extremely sensitive, because it is you know, in many ways it is it's a well, I say it's a beautiful place, but I think actually the work they're doing now is quite good as well. But that wasn't that. I think that particular effort, I think, resulted in a re-traumatization rather than anything else. So you know, this has been a journey of therapy, of self-exploration, and I guess, you know, that one can say that all experiences that you have in life help you to handle, to manage experiences now, sort of thing. So there's no doubt I joined the Royal Marines. It was a way for me to kind of prove to myself that I had worth, that I was strong. I deliberately chose the most difficult place, the Royal Marines, rather than the Army or the Air Force or the Navy or anything, because I wanted to really challenge myself and to prove myself to myself. And so that was the start of a healing journey, which has taken all sorts of twists and turns as I've gone through my life, really.
And arguably you wouldn't be doing the work you're doing with Serenity now unless you'd had that early life experience.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So what animates you so much about bullying and harassment?
Well, I watched a film. I've seen it a number of times now. It's called the Wilmslow Boy, and there are several versions of it, but I think the earliest version, I can feel a sort of emotion building up in me even as I think about it. It's the story of a young midshipman at Osborne, which was the preparatory school for Dartmouth, which was where young naval officers went. And it was kind of a pre-Navy boarding school. And this boy was accused of stealing a postal order, a 5-shilling postal order, as I remember it. And the story really is about, I mean, he's expelled because he's, you know, just, there's a decision made, he's guilty, expel him. And he has to come home and explain to his father that this has happened to him. And the whole story of the film really is about the father actually almost making himself go bankrupt to reinstate the boy's reputation. And it all starts with the father saying to the boy, "Did you do this?" And the boy says, "No, sir, I didn't." Mm. And what happens then is that the father, it has to go to the House of Commons, and the father hires a barrister, and right at the end, and he establishes the boy's innocence finally. But right at the end, the barrister speaks to the boy's elder sister, and he says, I wish I could quote it exactly, but he says something like, "What you have to fight for is right. Fighting for justice is easy. Fighting for right is hard."
Well, goodbye, Miss Winslow.
You still haven't answered my question.
Very well, then, if you must have it. I wept today because right had been done.
Not justice.
No, not justice, right. It's easy to do justice. Very hard to do right. But right has been done.
And it's that sense that, justice is created by the parliament and the courts, but what is right is something that one feels inside oneself. And what happened to me was not right. And what I see happening in the world, I see so many things that are not right. I think, going outside and smelling the air, just the other night I went out, somebody texted me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just going outside and I'm going to listen to an owl and look at the moon." And so that's very grounding for me, and I think that's really important, because I suppose I'm a bit of a campaigner, really. I see things that are not right in many places and in many ways, and I want to do my bit to make things right where I can.
Thank you, Thom. Wow, yeah, so the theme for this anti-bullying week this year is one kind word. So what does that mean to you, one kind word?
Well, it's a nice logo, but it doesn't actually do it for me, because when you're in an experience, you're being harassed or you're being bullied, yeah, a kind word is great, but actually what most people want is to be listened to. So actually it's not about what you say, it's what presence you bring to the interchange with this person, how present you can be with their pain without trying to make it right, but just being with them, listening to them, and enabling them to know that they're not going crazy and that someone believes them. Because so often in cases of bullying or harassment, and we see it all the time, people aren't believed. And very often the people who actually have the courage to put their hand up and say, "This is happening to me," the natural reaction of people is to discount it, or to say, "Oh, for goodness sake, get over it." And that is so insulting, and it's so re-traumatizing, that I just think that we need to be prepared to really bring our presence and our listening selves. And then perhaps the one kind word, sure, not first.
So when you deliver your keynote talk and our dialogue coming up on the 18th of November, what can we expect?
Well, as I said at the beginning, I'm not sure it's a continuum, but there's bullying, there's harassment, and then there's misogyny, misandry as well. There are a number of different aspects of this, and of course, right at the end, there's harassment that develops into physical damage in some way, and psychological damage. So I want to explore that a little bit. I want to sort of draw the distinction between what bullying is, what harassment is, and something that you really asked me about a while back is, why is this happening? What causes people to behave in this way, to create pain in others? So I'll explore that a little bit. And I think importantly, there is so little resource that I've seen to help people who are being bullied know what they can do, apart from taking the ultimate step, which is to, either withdraw or to state a complaint. So there are other things that people can do in these circumstances, but it is interesting to me that the resource, the information out there for people who are undergoing this kind of experience, there's very little of it. It's very little of it. So yeah, that's what I want to do, just in 15 minutes, and then we'll have the dialogue, and that'll be great. And hopefully there'll be people with different experiences. And I don't want it to sort of develop into a therapy session, but it is about, what can we do? Let's look at the positives in here. If you're being bullied, what can you do about it? And if you're an organization that cares, what can you do about it?
Brilliant, Tom. Well, I, for one, really am very much looking forward to hearing you talk. And gosh, it feels like so much information to fit into 15 minutes, as is always the way with our speakers. But I'm really looking forward to hearing you talk, because it's so clear from our chat just now alone, how passionate you are about this and how close to your heart it is. So please do join us 18th of November, 4 p.m. For an hour and a half, and Tom will be kicking us off with his keynote on bullying. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Roxy. Thanks.